Hello everybody and welcome back to another instalment of Britain's Hidden History. I'm Ross and I'm talking about the book here, Artorius, Rex Discovered by Wilson and Blackett, which I can also rather conveniently duck behind and take cover for all those nasty comments that be coming in. But that's alright, they're quite amusing. Because if you've got an argument and you've got a problem with what's being raised, then raise the argument and discuss the evidence. But I guess that's the way of the modern world. And people seem to forget that it's actually Wilson and Blackett who wrote the book, and I'm reporting having read the book. But there you go. Now, for those who missed it, what we've been looking at is this amazing conclusion that the Romans did not actually invade all of Britain at all. All they did was get a toehold in certain areas such as the south of England, maybe a couple of key ports like Caer-dydd on the River Severn, and after fighting for a few decades, they gave up because it was just too disastrous and expensive to try and conquer Britain. So 121, Emperor Hadrian came and made his agreement, his famous agreement, and the Welsh word for agreement is dyddio or dyddio, D-Y-D-D-I-O. And the place of the agreement was called Caer-dydd, as in place of the agreement, literally, which is known as still Caer-dydd today, Cardiff. So that's where the agreement was done. And after 120, British kings became the top man, if you like, in this empire, which seems to be more like a sort of European Union, really, where it was all about the money and trade and relationships. And the situation you had, and you apply a bit of logic to it, is that Britain had all these vast resources. Some of the biggest deposits of copper, iron, tin, gold, high quality coal for smelting, lime for the kilns, the tin, of course, for making bronze. Everything you needed was in Britain. And immensely wealthy country. And where this deadlock had been reached in the fighting, and some sort of trade agreement was made whereby the Romans desperately wanted the resources and they traded for them. And in return, it would seem the British got loads of buildings made, roads made, they received trades goods and pots, obviously stacks of coins, all sorts of things, as you'd expect in a trade going back and forth, because the Romans are feeding their war effort in Europe and Germany and needed all these things, from food, clothes, through the metals, a lot. So Britain, incredibly wealthy. And in the same way as modern countries go over, like I did, to the Middle East, places like Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Dubai, and build Western-style buildings and organisations and technologies. I think the coins for a lot of the countries in the world are minted in Llantrisant in Wales, just down the road. The same was happening then. So proof of finding something of Roman style is not proof of Roman invasion. And I think this same question, interestingly, is being raised in other parts of the Eastern Europe, Eastern Med, which might not have been all Roman either. It does make me laugh because my brother-in-law's Italian historian who lives in Florence, very, very mainstream. And the joke amongst him and his academic friends is, if there's all this Roman stuff all around the world, why is there so little of it in Rome? I guess they don't seem to have so much of it in Italy. But there you go, that's a side issue. One of the arguments that we looked at was these two parallel ruling lines. So you've got British kings, Roman emperors, and the two match by dates of birth and reign and length of reign descriptions. It's remarkable. I try to explain that any other way. Now, one of the alternative explanations put forward is that the British kings just copied a Roman list for some bizarre reason, right? To give themselves credibility or something. Well, the way we're going to test that, first of all, we showed that the British kings, you can see place names named after them. You can see where they were, where they commemorated, memorial stones, burial sites, all that kind of thing. So we're moving forward a bit now to a little bit later in the story, if I get this right. Hang on. Yep, here we go. Now, when it says independence here, I think Alan's going to put that a bit better because it was notionally independent anyway. But it's a bit like Brexit. I hate to bring up modern analogies, but if you think of the European Union, we have your own sovereign country, but it's within a larger trading network with a president who would be the emperor, and you have this situation. So Britain became a member of that, it would seem, on a trading basis. Some countries were subjugated and forced in, although I think that might be exaggerated. As I said, I think you'll find quite a few of these countries had similar loose arrangements rather than being under some imperial thumb of a big guy in Rome doing this and sending armies all over the place, making people do what he says. So it's keeping the money sweet. It's all about the business, all right? So these come slightly later. You can see the numbers in brackets. So we're on to King 53. I'm going to talk quickly about a few of those. And at the bottom, you see we are starting to get near to the magical King Arthur II, who's the one who became later immortalised in romance, set into Troy, Disney, fiction, whatever, anything that mentioned the British history of who he was. Tudric, you see down there, was his grandfather. Okay, so looking at the top of the list, we got King Caer. He's actually very well recorded. I mean, it's called Dark Ages, but that's just a way of hiding history. It's incredibly well recorded, okay? So this is the big moment then, he declared Britain and Northern Gaul, which is Brittany, clue is in the name, to be independent of Rome in 286 AD. So this was the Brexit moment, all right? That's the moment they said, okay, everything's falling apart over there, it's all going bankrupt, we're out, we're going our way, okay? Now, he's also known, Roman records, he's called Carausius, the Admiral, and Emperor of Britain. You can follow that, the other side's records, if you like. Also known as Caron of Minervia, which is St. David's, and sometimes as Carawan. His gravestone was found at Penmachno, Cornwall, I believe. And his palace at Caer-dydd confirms the story of attack and murder. It's well recorded, this story of a murder. And Caer-dydd is one of these incredibly frustrating sites. There's this fabulous palace there. The records say the British king had it built in the Roman fashion. So it's wonderful evidence. The archaeological dig was going on, finding great remains and everything, and then oh, hang on. This doesn't seem right. This seems British. And this seems amazing, but once they realised the decorations and stuff was showing a British history and a British story, everything stopped. There's no visitor centre there. There's not like anything Roman, like Caerleon, where millions and millions and millions is spent on visitor centres and museums and websites. This place, most people watching this will never have even heard of, okay? And there's other sites across Britain like that, particularly in Wales. All right, I was going to jump ahead then to king number 6, because he's very important. King Treherne was haughty and impetuous. In his time, the Saxons came to Gower, which is just outside Wales. It's a little sticky out peninsula. It's about halfway along the southern coast. It's called West Wales. That's because almost everyone lives in the southeast. But it's actually in the middle if you look at it. And the king failed to attack them. That's not in the code in those days. So in this reason, he was put to death. And this might give us a date, you see, because it could refer to the great Saxon and Pict raids of 367 AD. For the Picts are mentioned alongside the Saxons. You got Erebin, some joint rulers going on. Again, this ties in with the Roman situation. We have joint rulers. The parallels are remarkable. They go all the way through the lists, all right? And just to finish off there, keep this short, you got King Taithfalt up Teithrin, who the Romans refer to as Theodosius, son of Theodore. And he's usually said to have succeeded his grandfather, King Ninian, who I'm also meant to talk about. Because if you're a Cardiff City football fan, this Ninian Park is named after King Ninian, because he became a Saint Ninian. He spent his life fighting battles and clearing the country of enemies and slaughtering and doing what kings do. And the practice of the British kings then was you hedged your bets. As you got older, you retired. This is why the reigns aren't based on death. That's a much later or foreign concept. The British way of doing things was you reached a certain age, you retired, passed it on to the next person. So you have this nice continuity of rule. And also, you can then make sure your soul is safe. So that was the time to get baptized. So all those previous sins are forgotten. Lovely, clean sheet. And then you could go off, and if you dedicated a church, lived a pious life, left some money, you were going to be a saint. So all the saints you see in Wales are actually royal family. And there's loads of them, because that was your way to heaven. And the church got more and more powerful as it collected this land and money. So St. Fagin, St. Athens, St. Illtyd, all around here, it's Saint, Saint, Saint. Not because they were like sort of St. Francis of Assisi type character living up on a cave. they had lives as rulers first, violent lives, hard men, who then became men of the cloth. All right, and then you get situations like Tudrig, grandfather of Arthur. So we'll be getting on to number 61, who is King Arthur of fame, soon. Also be talking about Fortress Glamorgan, Fortress Gwent, and how hill forts worked and how they were different to the concept of big occupier castles, keeping a population safe, subjugated, keeping the people inside the castle safe. So the other thing I look at then is how some of these kings end up in Brittany, which is part of the same empire in those days, Scotland, Brittany, things like that. It all joined up, okay? So I hope you enjoyed that. I say it's all in this, it's always the wrong way around here, this book. And so just one recap: when it says no evidence of Roman occupation, it's not saying there's no evidence. It's just that evidence doesn't necessarily mean of Roman occupation. So I'm going to duck back behind here, wait for the next lot of incoming, and there'll be more on Sutton Hoo next, and that really gets people angry. So until the next time, hello.